verses from the Holy Quran. For that purpose, I would like to invite Mr. Aral, Hafiz al-Quran, to recitate some verses from the Holy Quran. Mr. Aral, the floor is yours, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا إنه هو السميع البصير. وآتينا موسى الكتاب وجعلناه هدى لبني إسرائيل ألا تتخذوا من دوني وكيلا. ذرية من حملنا مع نوح إنه كان عبدا شكورا. وقضينا إلى بني إسرائيل في الكتاب لتفسدن في الأرض مرتين ولتعلن علوا كبيرا. فإذا جاء وعد أولاهما بعثنا عليكم عبادا لنا أولي بأس شديد فجاسوا خلال الديار وكان وعدا مفعولا ثم رددنا لكم الكرة عليهم وأمددناكم بأموال وبنين بأموال وبنين وجعلناكم أكثر نفيرا إن أحسنتم لأنفسكم وإن أسأتم فلها فإذا جاء وعد الآخرة ليسوءوا وجوهكم وليدخلوا المسجد كما دخلوه وليدخلوا المسجد كما دخلوه أول مرة وليتبروا ما علوا تتبيرا صدق الله العظيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
صدق الله العظيم. Thank you very much, Mr. Farruh Aral, for your beautiful recitation. Dear Mr. Chair, honorable ministers, honorable members of parliaments, youth representatives, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to greet all of you and brief about our webinars, which was dedicated for the violations, the last violations perpetrated by the Israeli military forces against the innocent Palestinian civilians. Our today's webinar is consisted from the three parts. The first part will be opened by His Excellency Mr. Taha Ayhan, the chair of the webinar, and will be followed by the statements of the honorable ministers from the OIC member states, member of parliaments. In the second panel, which our representatives, youth representatives, will deliver their statements on behalf of the youth in their relevant countries. The third panel of experts, which our honorable participants, speakers, will talk about the last violations perpetrated by Israeli forces, and the participants, speakers of this panel, are experts and different academicians from the prominent universities. So here I would like to invite all of you to watch the video, very short video, 2 minutes video, dedicated for
I was born in fire, and I opened my eyes on the Israeli occupation. I'm Palestinian.
Corruption, the unemployment of young people, the problem that young people are facing right now, because they will graduate from some good university, but they will not go back to their country.
Our curriculum is not prepared based on our national demand.
Let even the tuition fees, they have even the difficult to afford what to eat.
Only 25% of the population over the age of 15 can read and write, and only 12.1% of girls can read and write.
The average age of radical militants are between 16 to 25, which is also higher education age.
Since the occupation has shot his first bullet, he predicted our first generation will die, and the second will forget. Hello, I am from the third generation. I didn't die yet. I will never forget. I'm still here.
Justice,
Education,
Human resources,
Freedom.
Honorable moderator, Mr. Fasahat Al-Hassan, I would like to have attention of our participants that today's webinar, after 3 panels, will be concluded by the adoption of the declaration, which was circulated in advance among OIC member institutions, Icyf member institutions, and all participants of this webinar. So Mr. Fasahat Al-Hassan is going to moderate the webinar. Mr. Fasahat is one of Icyf member institutions, who is the chair of the Youth Alliance for Human Rights from Pakistan, and I wish him successful moderation of this webinar. Mr. Fasahat, the floor is yours. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rasool, for your kind introductions. Honorable ministers, honorable member of parliaments, excellencies, young leaders, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start with giving a brief background of today's event. The decades-old Israel-Palestine conflict is in the international spotlight once again after Israeli aggression of kicking Palestinian residents of Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood out of their lawful homes forcefully, in order to replace them with Israeli settlers, violating several human rights and international laws in the process. This process began during the holy month of Ramadan, corresponding to late April 2021. Palestinian people faced these crimes through several peaceful strikes and marches near Masjid al-Aqsa. Protesters were faced with brutality and violence and attack on the Holy Mosque, which is one of the most symbolic Islamic pillars in the world. These events turned into a war kind of situation after it had induced an outrage in all Palestinian occupied and unoccupied lands, and Israeli occupied forces started with the bombing on Gaza for several days, destroying infrastructure, buildings, and taking hundreds of civilian lives. An Israeli strike destroyed a high-rise building in Gaza City that housed offices of many media houses and outlets, which is one of the gross human rights violations internationally. According to the latest figures, more than 200 Palestinians, including 58 children, or more than 58 children, have been martyred. According to the UN, approximation of more than 10,000 Palestinians have left their homes to take refuge in UN shelters. Keeping in mind the situation and brutalities in Palestine, young leaders from Pakistan and Lebanon initiated a discussion and collaborated with Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum for the Palestinian cause. And I'm very thankful to the President of Icyf, His Excellency Mr. Tahabe, for accepting our proposal immediately. It is also very important to acknowledge the support from all member institutions of Icyf, especially efforts by the Icyf team, Youth Alliance for Human Rights from Pakistan, Islamic Rasala Scouts Association of Lebanon, and High Council of Youth and Sports very kindly honored us as the patron of today's event. Objective of today's event is to highlight the human rights violations in Palestine, to develop support mechanism for the young people of Palestine, and to generate more support for the Palestinian cause. Without further ado, I would request His Excellency Taha Ehan, Webinar Chair and President of Icyf. Excellency, please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear Saad Bey, dear brother. Dear Excellencies, His Excellency Jibril Recep Bey, the President of the High Council of Youth and Sports of State of Palestine, His Excellency Fethallah Abdul Latif Az-Zuni, Minister of Youth and Sports of Libya, His Excellency Pirnur Al-Haq Qadri Bey, Federal Minister of Religious Affairs of Pakistan, His Excellency Zahid Ahsan Rushal, Minister of Youth and Sports of Bangladesh, His Excellency Mehmet Kasapoğlu, Minister of Youth and Sports of Turkey, His Excellency Faisal Karame, Member of Parliament in the Lebanese Parliament and former Minister of Youth and Sports of Lebanon, and Mr. Büyükgümüş Bey, the Board of Icyf representing the international institutions. Dear brothers and sisters, dear distinguished ladies and gentlemen, dear all who love the Palestine and who are supporting the cause of Palestine. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a great honor for me to be among you today in our binder of Palestine, the land of pride, courage, and unity. The Palestinian issue has always been at the heart of the OIC and the Muslim world, but especially in the heart of the youth. To those with us here today, I say the Palestinian youth are the heart of the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum. The cause of the Palestine is the very reason that of the establishment of OIC. It will continue to be present that with us all and consistently present in the Icyf projects and activities. I salute you all for your remarkable strength and bravery, whether in Palestine or in the refugee camps or throughout the diaspora, with my most profound respect and admiration for your heroism, patriotism, and great sacrifices in defense of Al-Quds Sharif and the first Qibla for the Ummah. Allow me to express my happiness to be with you today as we get together with our youth from OIC region and beyond to address some of the problems and challenges ahead of our Palestinian brothers and sisters. In this reminder, we aim to highlight the human rights violations in Palestine and also to feature distinguished experts and speakers from Palestine and all over the globe. Dear sisters and brothers, dear distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, Al-Aqsa Mosque is the world's third holy site for all Muslims across the globe. Jews call the area as the Temple Mount, claiming it was the site of two Jewish temples in the ancient times. And Israel occupied East Jerusalem, where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is located, during the 67 Arab-Israeli War. It annexed the entire city in 1980 in a move never recognized by the international community and against all of the international decisions. There has been flares up in violence in the Palestinian territories during the holy month of Ramadan in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The occupier used both rubber and lead bullets against innocent Palestinian worshippers. The occupier also resorted to inhuman treatment and violence of the Palestinian residents of Sheikh Jarrah, which caused escalated tensions, leading to the fatal loss of hundreds of lives of Palestinian civilians, children, women, and men, and namely claims lives of our sisters and brothers. As the deadliest attacks and atrocities perpetrated against the Palestinian people and the Holy Mosque of Al-Aqsa came to our knowledge, Icyf also issued a declaration in collaboration with its members and its institutions to express its firm stance and support to the Palestinians. In this regard, I am calling all stakeholders of this webinar not only for signing the declaration under reference, but also share with their network in a manner to even raise international awareness about the campaign towards infusing the spirit of the solidarity with the just stance Palestine at international level. Dear ladies and gentlemen, in our declaration, we reiterated the resolutions adopted by the United Nations on Palestine and Al-Quds, in particular the Security Council resolutions. We also recalled the United Nations Security Council resolution, which calls on Israel to immediately and completely cease all settlement activity in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, and the fully respect of its legal obligations in this regard. Immediate steps to prevent all acts of violence against civilians, including all acts of terror, as well as all acts of provocation and destruction. Unfortunately, violence never stopped by Israel, the occupying terrorist organization. Along the same lines, it is my pleasure to share with you that the Independent Permanent Human Rights Commission of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, in continuation of its earlier press statement of 9th of May of 2021, unequivocally condemns the ongoing barbaric aggression by Israel, the occupying power in Palestine, resulting into killing and maiming of hundreds of innocent Palestinians, which 67 among them are babies and children. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to emphasize once again the centrality of defending the cause of Palestine and Al-Quds for the whole humanity, which constitutes the main motive for founding the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and reaffirm the vital importance for preserving the sanctity and historical status of Al-Quds and Haram al-Sharif for the whole Muslim Ummah. On May 16, 2021, the OIC held an emergency meeting for the foreign ministers at the invitation of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to discuss the tragic events and Israel attacks in the occupied land of Palestine, especially in Al-Quds al-Sharif and vicinity of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The resolution of the meeting rejected and condemned the continued Israeli colonization of the occupied Palestinian territory, including the East Al-Quds and its establishment of an apartheid system, there specifically through building settlements, destroying Palestinian property, building a racial expansion wall, confiscating lands, homes and properties, and forcibly evicting and displacing Palestinians from their homes and land for centuries. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the follow-up the resolution issued by the meeting also resulted in political action in the United Nations General Assembly, which held an emergency session to discuss the attacks carried out by Israel, the occupying power in the occupied Palestinian territory. The OIC calls to stop the aggression to remind the international community of the importance of moving a permanent settlement as per the two-state solution and the Arab Peace Initiative, proceeding from the principles and objectives of the Charter of the OIC, pursuant to the resolutions adopted by the ordinary and extraordinary sessions of the Islamic Summit and Council of Foreign Ministers, recalling all relevant United Nations resolutions, and the Conference of the High Contracting Parties to the Fourth Geneva Convention of 1949 on the applicability of the provisions of the Convention to the land of State of Palestine and the protection of civilians in times of war. Driven by historical, moral, and legal responsibility of the Islamic Ummah towards the cause of Palestine and Quds al-Sharif, affirming that safeguarding and protecting Al-Quds al-Sharif and its historical, spiritual, and legal status, confronting everything prejudicial to this status and taking all necessary measures and steps to achieve this end is a central task and raison d'etre of the OIC. OIC resolution emphasized the grave situation in Quds al-Sharif and the hazing beach and Al-Quds Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the Palestinian people have suffered at the hands of the Israeli colonial occupation forces. Dear sisters and brothers, Icyf, as one of the OIC institutions, and within the OIC framework, the United Nations Security Council resolutions, and the international law, responded by initiating the first edition of the Young Legal Experts consultative meeting with the participation of representatives of the bar associations and concerned representatives of youth organizations in the Republic of Turkey, State of Palestine, and the Kingdom of Jordan on the legal aspects of current status quo in Palestine. The meeting held under the leadership of the OIC Corporation Youth Forum discussed what legal ways national and international youth organizations should be taken to protect Palestinian people against Israeli attacks and international legal actions should be taken. In this context, let me share with you some highlight and recommended legal actions resulted from the meeting in which Icyf will take the steps forward on these areas. There is a need for systematic solutions of Israel's crimes against the Palestinian people on a legal basis in the international arena. At present, the lack of multilateral international legal platform to act in an organized and strategic way in this field stands out. However, the proper records that can be extracted from the Ottoman and Jordanian archives, which indicate the historical status of the Palestinian people in the Palestinian lands before 1948, are of great importance as evidence. It provides an important basis for counter-arguments that can be produced in international lawsuits against Israel. In this respect, its contribution to the legal basis of the Palestinian cause is vital, and the tracking and collection of these proprietary records should be carried out in the countries related to the committees to be established. It's essential that Israel's attacks against the Palestinian people be presented to the world public opinion with documents, and especially to convey this evidence to the International Criminal Court. Announcing Israel's human rights violations to the world with documents is of great importance for the course of the cases and to create public opinion. Any evidence revealing human rights violations in Palestine should be collected and recorded. In particular, the International Criminal Court can be activated by individual and institutional applications to the International Criminal Court, and the addition of these evidence to the investigation launched against Israel in the ICC since 2015 can support the investigation against Israel. Another step that can be taken within the scope of the ICC is a letter to be taken immediately by the Icyf and its member organizations to the new officials of the ICC who will deal with the Palestine case. The letter should include the complaints about the abuses and violations against the Palestinian people caused by the ICC's timid attitude on this issue, the concerns of the youth organizations led by the Icyf and their expectations from the ICC. Activating the International Court of the Third States parties to the problem with the committees to be established as mentioned above is another important legal step that can be taken to create an international public opinion and action for Palestinian cause. All these legal steps must be supported by qualified documents, sources, and arguments based on international law, and the creation of this quality text requires coordinated cooperation. Dear distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as Icyf, we will ensure our solidarity and support to the Palestinian people, and especially the youth and the children. We shall remain committed to building the capacities of youth communities in Palestine. In this regard, it gives me a pleasure to share with you some projects we are working on regarding the Al-Quds. Some of them were already implemented and some of them are in process. For example, Icyf Palestine Training of the Trains Program, Icyf Palestine Students Exchange Program, Icyf Palestine Media Platform, Palestine Investment and Entrepreneurship Summit, and Icyf Al-Quds Office. Dear distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in spirit, let us all continue to work hard and consistently for the benefit of Palestinian youth and take action on the opportunities for dialogue, growth, and empowerment to expand and further increase our synergy in all development fields. We should remember that a humble beginning is better than no beginning at all. Once more, let me emphasize our determination and commitment to Icyf in involving Palestinian youth in the regional and international arena. And again, I want to express my profound thanks, especially to our ministers who are with us today and to all who are with us to listen and make interventions to benefit us. As president of Icyf, I emphasize that our door will always be open to all youth, and Palestinian cause is at the top priority of all. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a zafar, for a victory for Palestine, and I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to let us to see and free Quds Sharif and Masjid al-Aqsa, inshallah. Thank you very much for your kind attention and patience. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ma salama fi ma'allah.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, dear Taha Ehan, President of Icyf and webinar chair. Now I would request His Excellency Jibril Raju, President of Higher Council of Youth and Sports, State of Palestine, and also who is patronage of today's event. Your Excellency, floor is yours. Media team, can you please unmute His Excellency's mic, please?
Hi, brother. Do you hear me?
Yes, Excellency. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Dear Taha, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, sisters and brothers, please allow me to begin my intervention by reaffirming their will to defend Palestine, not just as a cause for the Palestinian people, not just as a cause for the Arab world, not just as a cause for the Muslim world, but as a cause for humanity. Over the past weeks, our people has been under attack by Israel, its occupation forces and fascist militias. When I say our people, I am literally saying over single Palestinian living in historic Palestine, from Jerusalem to Haifa to Jaffa to Gaza and Nablus. Israel does not make a distinction among Palestinians, no matter where we live. Their racist policies are aimed at securing a Zionist supremacy over our people's rights. This approach goes from racist laws to criminal bombardments, passing by illegal colonial settlements. Ladies and gentlemen, the latest aggression began in Jerusalem as a political decision of Benjamin Netanyahu to stay in power. Zionist extremists provoked our people all over the holy city, from Damascus Gate to the Holy Aqsa Mosque and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. But our people resisted and did not allow the occupation to humiliate them. We are the people of the land. We are the indigenous people of Palestine, and we are not planning to give up on our right as the Israeli apartheid has aimed at. No, Palestine did not surrender. Palestine is not surrendering, and Palestine is not going to surrender. Palestine will prevail. Palestine is here to stay, and Palestine will be free with our determination and your support. Distinguished friends, the organization of the Islamic Conference was created to protect Al-Aqsa. Jerusalem, Palestine's eternal capital, is Palestinian, but it's also a symbol that represents billions of Muslims and the Christians worldwide. Every Palestinian needs to feel your support. The Palestinian people is resisting in Jerusalem on behalf of billions. The Israeli colonialist occupation and its apartheid regime are not going to fall unless its existence becomes costly. Brothers and sisters, we are strong. We can make the needed change. but we need to have the will to take such action. Ending the Israeli occupation will not come through normalizing relations with the Israeli apartheid, but through taking concrete measures against the Israeli occupation, including through taking legal measures, including banning products from companies involved in the Israeli occupation and racist policies against our people. Companies building settlements should not be welcomed in your countries, just as you should make use of your relations with Western countries to make sure that we are not going to support Israel's impunity. When our late leader Yasser Arafat was leaving Beirut back in '82, he was asked where he was going to. His answer was Jerusalem. The city is the heart of our nation and is there where we are marching to. Supporting the people of Jerusalem is more important than ever, especially the families that are being threatened with forcible displacements, such as in Sheikh Jarrah, Silwan, and the Old City. Distinguished friends, yesterday a young boy was raising a Palestinian flag in his bicycle and he came under attack by Israeli forces. Just think of this, a kid surrounded by armed occupation forces for the crime of raising the flag of Palestine in Jerusalem. This is where we stand there. The latest Israeli aggression in Gaza left 254 people killed, including 67 children. There are 9 families that totally disappeared from the Israeli bombardments. During the same period of time, almost 30 people were killed in the West Bank, as well as there are 2 martyrs from 48 Palestine. Dear colleagues, thousands of injured, thousands of prisoners. Why? Because a state is allowed to implement policies of apartheid and colonial settlement occupation in the 21st century. Now is not just time for reconstruction in Gaza, but to link this with a political solution that will prevent such destruction to be repeated in a couple of years. We need your support with both. Let me be clear, a political solution means fully ending the Israeli occupation, including an occupied Jerusalem, as well as fulfilling the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people in accordance with international law and UN resolutions. This includes 1.8 million Palestinian citizens from the other side of the Green Line and their right to be recognized as well as to enjoy equal rights in the context of a state that supports equality for all rather than Zionist supremacy or apartheid. Dear sisters and brothers, Palestine is calling you. Palestine needs you. Joining the rightful Palestinians thing to do. It's a responsibility upon all of you. Once again, please allow me to thank the organizers of this event. Let me leave you with a word of hope. We will prevail. We are not going to anywhere, and Palestine will be free. Join us. Our destination is Jerusalem, where a young girl and a young boy will raise the flag of Palestine over the walls, the minarets and churches of the city. Finally, I would like to thank OIC countries and people and Arab countries for its continuous support for the Palestinian just cause, and we encourage all stakeholders, youth and governments to Palestinian people and youth. Thank you, dear brothers and sisters.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Now I would request His Excellency Fatehullah Abdul Latif Al Zani, Minister of Youth, Libya. I would also request for the subtitles or simulations translation by the technical team. Your Excellency, floor is yours.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السيد رئيس مجلس إدارة منتدى شباب التعاون الإسلامي، السادة أصحاب المعالي، الوزراء، السيدات والسادة الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أود بادئ ذي بدء أن أتقدم بالشكر إلى منتدى شباب التعاون الإسلامي وكل من بذل جهدا وحرص على تنظيم هذا الحدث المهم. ففي اعتقادي أن تنظيم هذا اللقاء الدولي الذي يركز على حقوق الإنسان والانتهاكات التي تحدث في فلسطين يعد نقلة نوعية في مؤازرة الحق الإسلامي في القدس وحق الفلسطينيين في وطنهم، حيث تأتي هذه النقلة في بعدين. يتمثل البعد الأول في أهمية موضوع ترسيخ مفهوم حقوق الإنسان على المستوى الدولي عموما في زمن تتسارع فيه الأحداث وتبدو فيه ذاكرة العالم سريعة وانتقائية، وتتعدد فيه مفاهيم حقوق الإنسان ومعاييره المزدوجة. ويأتي البعد الثاني لهذه النقلة في توقيت تنظيم هذا الحدث الهام، حيث يأتي التنظيم لتحقيق أهداف آنية ومستقبلية والتي تتزامن مع حدث جلل تمر به الأراضي المقدسة ويعصف بالشعب الفلسطيني. وتكمن أهمية المشاركة فيه ليس فقط لكوننا نحمل في قلوبنا القضية الفلسطينية كأصحاب حق، كما لا يمكن حصر أهمية المشاركة في كوننا نمثل دولا تتأثر بمجريات الأحداث الجارية في المنطقة وخاصة في هذه البقعة الطاهرة، وإنما لتأثير مشاركتنا المباشر وغير المباشر على مواقف حقوق الإنسان عالميا في العصر الحديث. فعند التجرؤ على تحديد الانتهاكات والخروقات لحقوق الشعب الفلسطيني، فإننا لا نعتبر أن الأمن فحسب على المحك، وإنما الأمر يتعداه إلى اعتبار مبادئ العلاقات والعدالة الدولية بل والسلام العالمي تحت اختبار عملي وحقيقي. سيدات والسادة الأفاضل، لست هنا لأشارك في التنديد والشجب فقط، حيث أن سياسة دولة ليبيا الرسمية المعلنة واضحة والتي لم تتغير في التحيز والوقوف إلى جانب الشعب الفلسطيني ونضاله وحقوقه المشروعة. تلك السياسة التي تأتي متوافقة مع نوايا الشعب الليبي وهويته، والذي أظهر مواقفه فيها عبر المظاهرات الشعبية الغاضبة. إنما أنا أشارك هنا لأحمل لكم أفكاراً شبابية وآراء في مواجهة هذه الانتهاكات والتجاوزات لحقوق الإنسان في حق الشعب الفلسطيني والأراضي المقدسة. فنحن بشكل عملي نطالب بالآتي: أولاً، تشكيل فريق عمل بمشاركة شبابية واسعة للتحقيق في هذه الانتهاكات وتجميعها والتأكد منها عبر التواصل مع أهالي الضحايا والجرحى والمنكوبين لتحديدها بكل دقة، واستمرار عمل هذا الفريق بتوثيق هذه الانتهاكات واستخدام التقنيات الحديثة لضمان حفظها ونشرها للعالم وبلغات مختلفة، وأن يكون لفريق العمل الحق في استخدام كافة الوسائل القانونية لضمان حقوق الشعب الفلسطيني أمام كل آليات وهياكل العدالة الدولية. ثانياً، الدفع بمنع استمرار هذه الانتهاكات عبر التنسيق دولياً للحفاظ على المواقف المكتسبة إلى تاريخ لقائنا هذا، والتي تصب في مصلحة الشعب الفلسطيني وقضية القدس وفلسطين، والتمسك بالاتفاقات والقرارات الأممية في هذا الصدد، بل والعمل على المطالبة بتوقيع عقوبات عدة، منها عقوبات اقتصادية جماعية من قبل الدول الأعضاء في مواجهة هذه الاعتداءات. ثالثاً، تحقيق التنسيق والتعاون الإسلامي العملي عبر آلية مستدامة للتنسيق قائمة على تأسيس الصندوق الشبابي للتعافي والإعمار لدعم صمود الشباب الفلسطيني الباسل، وأن يتم فيه تخصيص مبالغ مالية بهدف دعم الشباب الفلسطيني في مواجهة الأزمات والاعتداءات المتكررة والتضييق والمضايقات المستمرة، وكافة أشكال انتهاكات حقوق الإنسان، وأن نسهم جميعا حكومات ومنظمات شبابية في هذه الآلية المشتركة التي تسهم في تحقيق التعافي والإعمار والصمود في مواجهة شتى الانتهاكات لحقوق الإنسان الفلسطيني. رابعا، كسب التأييد الدولي عبر المبادرات الشبابية الموحدة لدعم ومؤازرة حقوق الشعب الفلسطيني، وإظهار الحقيقة بمختلف اللغات والوسائل لضمان وصول الصورة الحقيقية للشباب الفلسطيني ومعاناتهم وطموحاتهم في حياة كريمة على وطنهم. لذا نقترح إيجاد آليات للتواصل في هذا الشأن. ختاما، فإن شباب ليبيا يحظوه أمل وثقة بتفاعلكم في مناقشات هذه المقترحات لننتقل من القول إلى الفعل الذي يسهم ولو بشكل يسير في صد ومنع الاعتداءات المتكررة وفي تضميد جراح قدسنا وأهلنا، لتتراكم الأفعال ويعلو البنيان لتحقيق حفظ حقوق الشعب الفلسطيني وحقنا في أراضينا المقدسة. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم. أصحاب السماحة، أصحاب الفضيلة، أصحاب المعالي، الوزراء والأعضاء البرلمان، وجميع الإخوان والأخوات الفاضلات، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أولا أهني الشعب الفلسطيني الشجاع الصابر القوي البطل بما صدر في الشهر الماضي وما ينتج مما فعل إسرائيل من أجل البلاهة والحماقة، ينتج فقد الفشل واللوم على الإسرائيل والصهاينة الغاصبين المعتدين. وعلاقاتنا مع القدس الشريف والأراضي المقدسة المباركة علاقات الروح والقلب. Honorable President, all my colleagues and friends, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer of this seminar, especially Icyf, and my dear brother and friend, the moderator of today's event, Mr. Fasahatul Hassan, for giving me the opportunity to join and to express my views on this utmost important issue of Palestine and the human rights violation committed by Israel there. The title of the seminar is not only relevant to the Islamic world, but it is the most important issue of the entire humanity. هذا ليس فقط آلام الفلسطينية أو العربية أو المسلمة، بل هي آلام البشرية وكارثة إنسانية، ونعدها من جرائم حربية وانتهاكات مقدسات الدينية، وهو أيضا منع عن حرية الدين وحرية الفكر. The title of this seminar is not only relevant to Islamic world, but it is most important issue of the entire humanity, without which the slogan of peace and security of any nation, state, or institute will undoubtedly remain empty, hollow, and meaningless. Our views on this subject are not only for the Islamic world, but also for every state and nation that has conscious desire of humanity, peace, and security. For the past 7 decades, the Palestinian people have been the victims of Israeli occupation, brutality, and genocide. In 1948, the unlawful state of Israel was established against the will of Palestinian people. Therefore, Israeli forces captured the land and homes of innocent Palestinians. They were forced to leave the area permanently. Hence, millions of self-sufficient Palestinians are forced to live in refugees camps on charities. Despite the establishment of this state, Israel has partially divided from the two-state solution proposed in accordance with the UN resolution. The international community must understand that Palestinian refugees have the right to return to their homes and to own their land in accordance with the same UN rules and resolutions which recognizes the existence of Israel, for which they have been protesting from last 70 years. It is internationally recognized fact that you cannot use tactics of protect your right that affect the rights of the other. While Israel has killed hundreds of innocent Palestinians in the use of defense, is confirmed by research reported by the impartial sources from other major bodies, including the United Nations. Unfortunately, Muslim countries, including the international community, have remained silent spectator. The whole Islamic world in humanity will have to fight. It is constitutional and legal battle for its right, putting aside its international division and differences. Otherwise, genocide of Muslims and other humans will engulf this nation. Israel's recent aggression and shameful action in occupied Jerusalem and Gaza, in which large number of children, women, and innocent civilians were martyred, once again exposed the cruel and brutal face of Israel to the world. Pakistan used all possible diplomatic means to draw the attention of United Nations to this issue. Alhamdulillah, Summa Alhamdulillah, Pakistan representing the OIC passed a resolution in the United Nations Human Rights Council to investigate Israelis' human rights violation in Palestine. The resolution called for an investigation into human rights abuses by Israel. Therefore, human rights violation in Gaza will now be investigated, and the Commission of Inquiry will investigate and form an opinion. Through this seminar, I would like to request the entire Islamic world in all the humanity that we should be united in resolving the issue faced by Islamic world, particularly Kashmir and Palestinian issue, the strong and powerful voice of Islamic world will surely prove to be effective and efficient with the help of support of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will succeed in achieving peace and security for our brother, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah be our supporter and helper. Palestine Zindabad, Al-Quds Paindabad.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Peer Saab, Dear Mirganida, for your kind remarks. Now I would request His Excellency Sahib Ahsan Rasool, Minister of Youth and Sports of Bangladesh, for kind remarks. Your Excellency, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Excellency, the President of Icyf, His Excellency Taha Yahan, Excellencies the Youth and Sports Ministers, distinguished guests, sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Excellencies, I am present before you today with a broken and saddened heart while the Muslims around the world were observing the month of Holy Ramadan in 2021. Our Palestinian brothers and sisters in the occupied territory of Palestine face the atrocities of the Israeli forces. Bangladesh expresses deep condolences to the victims with strong condemnations of the repeated attacks by the Israeli occupation forces. The eviction of Palestinian families in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood and transfer of civilian population into the occupied territories exposes the severe violation of human rights. International law and accords which have mercilessly triggered civic feelings across the world. Bangladesh considers there could be no pretext that can justify killings of innocent civilians. No argument can justify the breach of international humanitarian laws and human rights standards. The people of Bangladesh have expressed their solidarity along with other peace-loving people around the world during the recent attacks of Israel and on innocent Palestine. Excellencies, Bangladesh joined YC, an important platform for Muslim world, in 1974 after Liberation War, under a prudential leadership of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Since then, Bangladesh is keeping close relation with all Muslim countries. It has been continuing to play on an active role in the activities of the organization based on Islamic values for sustainable peace, solidarity, and development. We are also an active member in the Al-Quds Committee and are resolved in reaching a permanent solution to the Palestinian cause. Excellencies, the bilateral relation between Bangladesh and Palestine are very close, friendly, and historical as well. Here I would like to recall all those memories of the historic high-level meeting between our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and PLO President Yasir Arafat in the second summit of YC, where with other Muslim leaders, Bangabandhu declared that the right over Jerusalem needs to be regained and Bangladesh would extend unwavering support for the just cause of its Arab brothers. In 1974, when Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman addressed the UN General Assembly for the first time, he also expressed his unequivocal support for Palestine. He said very strongly in his speech, quote, "Injustice is still prevalent in many parts of the world. Our Arab brothers are still fighting for the complete eviction of the invaders from their land. The equitable national rights of the Palestinian people have not yet been achieved," unquote. The strong bond of support between Bangladesh and Palestine was again re-emphasized when Yasir Arafat visited Bangladesh in 1997 on the occasion of the Silver Jubilee of independence of Bangladesh in response to a special invitation of Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Notable that Bangladesh has no diplomatic relation with Israel and has a complete ban on trade with Israel. Excellencies, Bangladesh urged the UN Security Council to take up the issue of violence and breach of security in the Al-Quds, Al-Sharif, and the entire occupied land of the state of Palestine. Bangladesh endorses the statement of the YC group at the United Nations and at the urgent formal meeting of the UN General Assembly plenary. Bangladesh welcomes the decision of ceasefire between Israel and Palestine in the Gaza Strip. Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, in her letter to the Honorable President of the State of Palestine, has reiterated Bangladesh's unflinching commitment in realizing inalienable rights of the brotherly people of Palestine for an independent, sovereign, and viable state of Palestine based on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina said, quote, while expressing our deep condolences to the victims and sympathies to our Palestinian brothers, we unequivocally denounce such acts of terror and violence and urge the international community to take sustainable measures to end such kinds of acts anywhere and everywhere in the world, including Palestine, unquote. Excellencies, you will surely agree that as a consequence of the long-standing Israeli aggression and atrocities, the young Palestinian people are leading a life full of uncertainty and confronting identity crisis every day. Due to the instability in the region, they have little hope for a better future. As a result, Israeli aggression may force Palestinian young people to engage themselves in act of violence. It is our collective responsibility to support and empower the Palestinian youth so that they could contribute to promote peace, stability, and security in the region instead of choosing the path of violence. The global community must acknowledge the importance of empowering the Palestinian youth and take measures to ensure proper education and more employment opportunities for them. The international community should work together to find a comprehensive and durable solution to the Palestinian issue in accordance with the relevant UN resolution, the Arab Peace Initiative, and the Quartet Roadmap. Excellencies, as the member of the Muslim Ummah, our destinies one as our burdens and responsibilities. Only by mobilizing and optimizing our synergies, we can create an Ummah of shared peace and stability which our future generation will inherit. At this crucial junction, let us stand strong together and work for the betterment of oppressed and depressed humanity of Palestine. I thank you all. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu, long live Bangladesh Palestine friendship.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your remarks and for your thoughts. I really appreciate it. Now, I would like to request His Excellency Mehmet Kasapolo, Minister of Youth and Sports of Turkey. Your Excellency.
Sayın Bakanlar, uluslararası kuruluşların ve İslam İşbirliği Teşkilatı'nın değerli yöneticileri, sivil toplum örgütlerinin çok kıymetli mensupları, sizleri hürmetle, muhabbetle selamlıyorum. Toplantımızın başta Filistin olmak üzere tüm Müslüman coğrafya için, insanlık için hayırlar getirmesini temenni ediyorum. Ramazan ayı içerisinde başlayan ve bayram süresince devam eden ilim hadiseler hepimizin yüreklerinde acı ve iz bıraktı. Herkesin gözü önünde, çoluk çocuk demeden yüzlerce masum insanı teknolojinin son ürünü silahlarla şehit etmek apayrı bir ilim manzarayı tüm dünyaya gösterdi.
O binlerce insan evini, yuvasını kaybetti. Ve dünyada demokrasi, adalet, insan hakları dersi vermeye kalkan devletler, kuruluşlar her zaman olduğu gibi üç maymun oynadılar. İsrail manipülasyonun en çirkin yüzünü kutsal mekanda ilk kıblemiz Mescid-i Aksa'da gösterdi. Şehçera Mahallesi'nde barışçıl gösteriler yapmak amacıyla bulunan insanlara karşı vahşi saldırılar ve sonrasında Gazze'de masum insanların üzerine bombalar yağdırılarak uluslararası kanunların, insanlık kurallarının hepsi hiçe sayıldı. Türkiye olarak olayların ilk anından itibaren ivedilikle tepkimizi ortaya koyduk. Çünkü Filistin bizler için herhangi bir ülke değildir. Kudüs sıradan bir şehir değildir. Kudüs tüm Müslümanlar için bir semboldür. Kudüs'e hizmet etme bahtiyarlığına nail olup şehre binlerce eser kazandıran, şehri yüreğinde hisseden ecdadın torunları olarak bugüne kadar hep Kudüs'ün yanında olduk. Ortak bir tarihi, ortak bir inancı, ortak değerleri paylaştığımız gönül coğrafyamıza karşı sorumluluğumuzu hep az ne olursa olsun hep yerine getirdik. Sayın Cumhurbaşkanımız İsrail zulmü başladığı andan itibaren olağanüstü bir çaba gösterdi. Tüm kurumlarımız sürecin en başından itibaren güçlü bir irade ortaya koydular. Yaşanan son saldırılarda özellikle Batı medyası tarafından oluşturulan bilgi dezenformasyonu ve İsrail propagandasının hepimize mücadelenin diğer bir yanını da güçlü bir şekilde gösterdiğini gördük. Bilginin etkili bir şekilde yayılması ve yaşananların dünya kamuoyuyla direkt olarak paylaşılması kritik bir önem arz ediyor. Türkiye olarak devlet televizyonumuz, TRT Barut, olayların her anına ilişkin görüntüleri servis etmek ve Filistin'in yanında olmak için seferber oldu. Yine Anadolu Ajansımız 24 saat boyunca an be an haber servisini en güçlü şekilde yerine getirdi. Yalnız kendi coğrafyamızda değil, Batı toplumunda da bir farkındalık oluşturmak için önemli bir misyonu ifa ettik. 7'den 70'e tüm halkımız sosyal medyadan olsun, sivil toplum kuruluşlarımız tüm mecralarda olsun, ellerinden gelen gayreti gösterdiler. Sayın Cumhurbaşkanımızın ifadesini burada bir kez daha dikkatinize sunmak istiyorum. İslam ümmeti tek ses olmadığı sürece dünyanın her köşesinde Müslümanlara zulmedilmeye devam edecektir. Dünya Müslümanları olarak Kudüs ve Filistin konusunda birlikte hareket etmek zorundayız. Gençlerimiz arasındaki iletişimimizi kuvvetlendirmeli, kardeşlik bağlarımızı güçlendirmeliyiz. Teşkilatımıza, gençlik forumumuza bu süreçte önemli görevler düşüyor. Aktif işbirliğimizi daha ilerilere taşımak zorundayız. Türkiye olarak bugüne kadar olduğu gibi bundan sonra da Filistin'in yanında İslam coğrafyasıyla birlikte ve İslamofobinin de tam karşısında olmaya devam edeceğiz. İnşallah İslam İşbirliği Teşkilatımıza ve İslam İşbirliği Gençlik Forumumuza bugüne kadar olduğu gibi bundan sonra da en güçlü şekilde destek vermeye devam edeceğiz. Ben bu vesileyle toplantımızın hayırlara vesile olmasını diliyor. Sizlerin en samimi duygularımla selamlıyorum.
His Excellency Faisal Karabi, Member of Parliament and former Minister of Youth and Sports of Lebanon. Your Excellency, floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Taha, Mr. Rasul, Mr. Jibril. Mr. Ahmad, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, أيها السيدات والسادة، بداية أحيي الإخوة في منتدى شباب التعاون الإسلامي وشركائهم على جهودهم لإنجاز هذا الملتقى وعلى إتاحة الفرصة لي لأكون معكم وبينكم. إن الكيان الإسرائيلي أيها الأخوة منذ نشوئه عام 1948 قام على قاعدة الفصل العنصري، وسعى طوال السنين الماضية إلى تكريس هذه القاعدة عبر محاولات التهويد المتنوعة للأراضي المحتلة، منتهكا أبسط حقوق الإنسان.
إخوتي وأخواتي, ladies and gentlemen, to start off, I would like to salute the brothers and sisters of the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum and of their esteemed partners for their efforts to host this webinar and to have given me the honor and opportunity to be here with you today. The Israeli entity, brothers, since its inception in 1948, has been based on segregation. Over the past years, it has sought to consolidate this base through various attempts to Zionize the occupied territories in violation of the most basic human rights.
وكل ذلك تم للأسف تحت مرأى العالم وبدعم من دول كبرى، بحيث بقيت القرارات الصادرة عن مجلس الأمن الدولي وعن منظمة الأمم المتحدة، والتي تؤكد على حق الفلسطينيين في إقامة دولتهم المستقلة، كما تؤكد على حق العودة للفلسطينيين المنتشرين في الشتات، بقيت حبرا على ورق.
Unfortunately, all of this took place in the eyes of the world and with the support of major powers. Resolutions adopted by the International Security Council and the United Nations affirming the right of Palestinians to establish their own independent state and the right of return of the Palestinians deployed in the cleared areas have remained a dead letter.
لقد أتت الانتفاضة الفلسطينية الأخيرة لتؤكد للعالم أجمع أن مخطط التهويد لم ينجح، خصوصا في أراضي 1948 وفي مدن الضفة الغربية، وإن ارتكابات المحتل الصهيوني ضد الفلسطينيين وزج عشرات الآلاف في المعتقلات ومعظمهم عبر بدعة الاعتقال الإداري وحرمان الفلسطينيين من ممارسة أبسط حقوقهم في العيش الكريم.
The recent Palestinian uprising has come to confirm to the world that the Zionizing scheme has not worked, especially in the 1948 territory and West Bank cities, and that Zionist occupiers' actions against the Palestinians have thrown tens of thousands in detention centers, mostly through administrative detention, and the denial of Palestinians from exercising their most basic rights to live.
كل ذلك تهاوى على أرض الواقع، وانكشفت إسرائيل ككيان عنصري لا ينتمي إلى هذا العصر ولا يقيم وزنا للقيم والمبادئ التي تؤمن بها الإنسانية.
All of this is a bleak on the ground of the reality, and Israel has emerged as a racist entity that does not belong to this era and does not give weight to the values and principles that humanity believes in.
لقد ارتكب الكيان الصهيوني على مدى 11 يوما جرائم إبادة، مستهدفا النساء والمدنيين والأطفال في غزة، وواجه التحركات السلمية في باقي الأراضي المحتلة بهمجية غير مسبوقة، مسفرا عن وجهه القبيح الذي استفز كل أحرار العالم وأعاد القضية الفلسطينية إلى الواجهة بوصفها قضية حق وعدالة.
The Zionist entity committed during the 11 days of crimes and terrorism targeting women, civilians, and children in Gaza. It faced peaceful movements, and the rest of it was faced with peaceful movement in the rest of the occupied territories with unprecedented barbarity. waging its ugly face, which provokes all the free people of the world and brought the Palestinian cause back to the front as a case and cause of truth and justice.
ومن المهم أن نتوقف عند الحدث الذي فجر الانتفاضة، وهو انتهاك سلطات العدو لباحات المسجد الأقصى المبارك ومنع الفلسطينيين من أداء صلواتهم المعتادة في شهر رمضان المبارك، ومحاولة تهجير وطرد السكان العرب في حي الشيخ جراح من بيوتهم في سياق خطة لتهويد بيت المقدس.
It is important to stop at the events that blew up the most recent intifada, namely the enemy authorities' violation of the holiness of the blessed Al-Aqsa Mosque, preventing Palestinians from making their usual prayers in the blessed month of Ramadan, and attempting to displace and expel the Arab population in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood from their homes in the context of a plan to Zionize the Holy House.
تخطئ إسرائيل كما أخطأت طوال العقود الفائتة حين تعتقد أن المقدسات الإسلامية في فلسطين هي شأن داخلي، وأن ما يجري في القدس يبقى في إطار القدس والمقدسيين.
Israel is mistaken, as it has been wrong for the past decades, when it believes that the Islamic holy places in Palestine is an internal matter, and that what's happening in Jerusalem remains within the framework of Jerusalem and its people.
تخطئ إسرائيل بعنجهية وحماقة حين تقفز فوق التاريخ وتتناسى أن المقدسات الإسلامية هي أمانة كبرى لدى الأمة الإسلامية، وأن الدفاع عن هذه المقدسات وحمايتها قضية إسلامية تتوحد حولها كل الشعوب الإسلامية.
Israel has gone wrong on so many stupid levels when it jumps over history and forgets that Islamic holy places are a great affair for the Islamic nation, and that defending and protecting these holy places is an Islamic cause around which all Islamic people are united.
وإنني إذ أشكر منتدى شباب التعاون الإسلامي والقيمين على هذه المبادرة.
Once again, I thank the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum and its leaders and all its partners for taking these initiatives.
وأدعوهم لكي ينطلقوا من موقعهم وبما يمثلون.
I call upon them to start from their position and to launch
إلى إطلاق حملة دولية تظهر لكل العالم حقيقة علاقتنا الدينية والإيمانية بمقدساتنا، وضرورة أن تكون لهذا العالم مواقف شجاعة وحكيمة وحاسمة تحرر هذه المقدسات من العبث الصهيوني والاعتراف بها عاصمة أبدية للدولة الفلسطينية.
To launch an international campaign that will show all the world the truth of our religious and Iman relationship with our places. This world must have courageous and wise and decisive positions that frees these holy places from Zionist tampering and recognizes them as an illegitimate capital of the Palestinian state, pending a just solution for the Palestinian question.
بانتظار الوصول إلى الحل العادل للقضية الفلسطينية الذي يحفظ الحقوق ويؤمن العدالة ويعيد الأرض السليبة لأهلها وأصحابها الأصليين.
Which preserves rights, guarantees justice, and regains the good earth to its family and to its ingenious companies.
والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your remarks. Last but not the least, I would now like to request Mr. Ahmed of Mus, board member of Icyf, representing international institution. Mr. Ahmed, the floor is yours.
Dear His Excellency Ministers, dear members of parliaments, respectful President of Icyf, dear board members of Icyf, my distinguished young brothers and sisters across the globe, respected ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Icyf officials for organizing this important initiative, which is only a part of the comprehensive Palestine campaign of the institution supporting stance of Palestinians at national, regional, and international levels. During the last days of Holy Ramadan, international community once again witnessed the Israelis another barbaric aggression on the people of Palestine as materialization of occupying powers, continuous expansionist and illegal settlement policies. What is most horrible? The Israeli security forces stomped the premises of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in occupied East Jerusalem by attacking worshippers during prayer times and in a blessed month. This continued onslaught undermines every peace process between two states, and these assaults is a systemic violation of international legitimacy, individual freedom, and sanity. The Israeli illegal policies, practices, and expansionist plans in the occupied Palestinian territory, including Jerusalem, which constitutes the state of Palestine, endangers international peace and security and threatens the prospects of attaining a peaceful solution of the conflicts. These practices and policies persist against being in direct violation of international law. The Fourth Geneva Convention obliged the occupying power to provide for the well-being of the protected population as a primary duty, and if need be, agreed to relieve shames on behalf of the occupied population and facilitate them by all means at its disposal. I would like to also recall that Israel has pursued a long-standing policy of destroying Palestinian property, including property and items provided as humanitarian assistance to Palestinian communities in East Jerusalem and Area C of the West Bank. This has been well documented by the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, several international NGOs, and the European Union. We continue to denounce these barbaric acts and disregards to international law, particularly on the UN Security Council's resolution number 2334 on the consideration of the Israeli settlements as illegal and as an assault on the right of Palestinians to their land, relating to the unlawful practices of the Israeli occupation in the Palestinian occupied territory. We reaffirm the centrality of the cause of Al-Quds al-Sharif for the whole Islamic Ummah and emphasizes on the need to defend the sanctity of Islamic and Christian holy places. We need to support our Palestinian brothers and sisters in everywhere, possible by seeking legal action against Israel. We need to mobilize our energy, intellect, legal maxims, and voices and direct them to these legal suits. I am drawing your attention to this matter because in the face of this ethnic cleansing practiced by Israel, we need to be more unified, more than ever, and bring our unwavering support to this cause. At this point, I would like to raise your kind attention to the significance of Icyf declaration, which we perceive highly important to affirm international community's support to the just stance of Palestinian people. Therefore, as board member of Icyf, I am also calling esteemed participant to sign and share this important declaration with the purpose of leveraging its effectiveness in international area. The issue in Palestine is not an issue of Muslim or non-Muslim. It's a humanitarian issue which needs to be tackled. If not, we are undermining our human values, and as Icyf, we will sustain our full determination to support Palestine in every accessible platform. I would like to thank for your kind attention, and I express again my deep solidarity with all Palestinian my brothers and sisters. Fi amanillah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed, for your remarks, and I really appreciate your support for the
نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له يقول تبارك وتعالى في كتابه العزيز أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا. Your Excellencies, the President of Icyf, their brother Taha Ayhan Bey, Your Excellencies and Honorable the Minister of Youth and Sport in OIC member countries, all the OIC young leader, and also the committee. First of all, I would like to send my gratitude to the Icyf headquarters, not only for making this webinar online tonight in Palestinian issue, but also for his passion for their leadership in connecting the Muslim Ummah around the world. Dear brother, sister, the OIC young leader, the attendees of the webinar tonight, I would like to deliver our statement on behalf of the Indonesian National Youth Council and representing ASEAN region for Icyf. And I would like to deliver the statement also made by the Foreign Minister and also the President of Joko Widodo in the last of extraordinary General Assembly in New York last week. Dear brother and sister, I'm here today attending the webinar on Palestinian issue to express my siding and my support to Palestine, to fight for humanity and to fight for justice for the Palestinian people. I am here today to call for end the violent and Israel apartheid colonialism to save the life of innocent people, including women and children. Dear brothers and sisters, I would not mention by one the violation committed by the aggressor of Israel, because there have been so many crimes they have committed and so many agreements that have been broken by the Israel as the aggressor, including the UN resolution and the OEC, which is always obeyed by the officer of Israel. This condition have made the people of Palestinian continue in suffering, and the territory of Palestinian is getting smaller day by day. The safety and well-being of mankind is always our number one priority. I'm sure that each one of us thoughts when confronted with events of a 2-month-old baby injured and pulled away from the rubble as her family lay dead. Brothers and sisters, the only question we should ask ourselves is how much longer shall we let the atrocities continue? All of us know that this conflict is asymmetric by nature between Israel as the oppressor, the occupying power, and the Palestinian, the occupiers, who are continuously being oppressed. And of course, occupation is the core issue in Palestinian. Brothers and sisters, YC member countries and the international community owes the Palestinian people a long overdue independent state of Palestine, living side by side in equal footing with all of us. This continued occupation and aggression by Israel doesn't warrant condemnation, but it is also a great violation of international law that demand our action. Thus, we call to all the leaders, I call to all the leaders who are attending this webinar tonight to take the action. Firstly, let's call for the unity of Muslim Ummah. It is the first step. We have to realize that what Prophet Muhammad SAW words have occurred today. Rasulullah SAW said the condition of Muslim Ummah one time, like a palm in the ocean, weak and helpless, even though there are many Muslims in the big number. Today, Muslims are among the crushes of major power, not only in Zionist Israel, but also in the major power of communist, socialist powers, and the West and his island in the capitalist group. Secondly, we must stop the violent and military action to prevent further casualties. At the same time, the IOC member countries should demand for an immediate, durable, and fully respectable ceasefire. All avenues must be exhausted to de-escalate the situation urgently, as we also support continue and relentless effort by the OIC and institution. Furthermore, we must be able to prevent future recurrence of the atrocities in this regard. So, this conference should call for the establishment of an international presence in Al-Quds to monitor and to ensure the safety of the Palestinian people in the occupied territories and to protect the status of Al-Haram Al-Sharif compound, and also the holy place for the three religions, as we know. Dear brother and sister, the third action is to ensure humanitarian access and protection of civilians. Our ultimate responsibility is to save the life, and every minute we spend here deliberating could mean another Palestinian life lost. And I call to the OIC leader, to the young leader of OIC in this conference, together with the relevant of OIC and other stakeholders in OIC member countries, to step up effort in providing humanitarian assistance to the affected Palestinian people. It must encourage Israel to open and allow access for the delivery humanitarian aid, including Gaza, which has been under siege for more than 15 years perhaps. Yeah. And last, dear brother and sister, we have to take action to ensure credible multilateral negotiation. Credible negotiation is very important to advance a just and comprehensive peace based on land with international agreed parameter. In this regard, I agreed with Mr. Excellencies Ahmed Buyukumus about the resolution of the United Nations. Brother and sister, the government in the OIC member countries and the young leader in the OIC member has moral and political responsibility to ensure that peace negotiation take place. We must put stop the systematic effort of the occupying power that might leave nothing left to be negotiated. We must not allow the Palestinians to have no another choice but to accept injustice for the rest of their life. Therefore, we have to stop this injustice now. We have to continue our support to Palestinians. We have to support to building Gaza, to building West Bank, and to bring back the territory of Israel, of Palestinian, to the Palestinian people, and to get their independence and justice. Mr. President, Honorable Minister of Youth and Sport in OIC member countries, the Member of Parliament, and the OIC young leader who attended the webinar tonight. In recent days, during the COVID pandemic, we witnessed the erosion of trust in multilateral institutions. Today, we had this meeting with one main purpose: to ensure that justice prevails for the Palestinians. This conference will be seen as lead sisters for multilateralism. We must remain committed and stand united in our efforts against all illegal acts of Israel toward ending the occupation in Palestine. Dear brother and sister, we have to act now together. Icyf and all the OIC young leader has to act now. Wabillahi taufiq ila aqwami tariq, wallahu muwafiq ila sabilil haq, nun wal qalami wa bayasturun, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
Thank you very much, dear brother Tantan, for such an emotional and very important speech. I really appreciate your enthusiasm and encouragement, but at the same time, I would request the other speakers kindly make sure that we are also running out of time. So please make sure that you are within the time allocated. Thank you very much, Brother Tantan, again. Now I would request the technical team to please share the video message by
Ummah Youth stands with Palestinian people.
My name is Ahmed. Ethiopia Might Youth stands for Palestine.
Burkina Faso Youth stand with Palestinian people.
Youth from Bosnia and Herzegovina stands with Palestinian people.
Azerbaijan Youth stand with Palestinian people.
Algerian Youth stands with Palestinian people.
Albanian people stand with Palestinian people.
Afghan Youth stands with Palestinian people.
Turkish Youth stands with Palestinian people.
Tunisian Youth stands with Palestinian people.
Thailand stands with Palestine. Sudanese Youth stands with Palestine.
As a Somali youth, we stand with Palestinian people.
Sierra Leone Youth stand with the Palestinian people.
Senegal, we stand with Palestinian people.
Sandra stands with Palestinian people.
Pakistani youth stand with the Palestinian people.
Niger stands with Palestine.
Moroccan youth stand with Palestinian people.
Mali, we stand with Palestinian people.
Kosovo stands with Palestine.
Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus Youth stands with Palestinian people.
Kyrgyz Youth stands with Palestine.
Kazakh youth stand with Palestine.
Montenegrin youth stands with Palestine people.
Iranian youth stands with Palestine.
Indonesian youth stands with Palestinian people.
Gambian youth stand with the people of Palestine.
The Bangsamoro Youth stands for Palestinian people.
Malaysian youth stands with Palestinian people.
Fasat, thank you for your efforts. Thank you for your moderation. Bismillah. وفضل الله المجاهدين على القاعدين أجرا عظيما. صدق الله علي العظيم. President of ICYF, Brother Mr. Taha Ayhan, distinguished ministers and members of parliament, fellow ICYF members and representatives, speakers, specialists, ladies and gentlemen, salutations and greetings to you all. It is without a doubt an important topic to be discussing here today. No, it is an essential topic to be discussing here today. If there is any humanitarian out there who's not speaking about the Palestinian cause, then trust me, they are on the wrong side of history. Balfour Declaration took place in 1917, where a British minister promised, when by the end of First World War, that the Palestinian land shall go to the Jewish people, and where the state of Israel shall be done. Was it his land to begin with, to plan, to promise, or what right did he have over that? As things began taking place after the other, from 1917 till 1948, Israeli settlers began, or Jewish settlers began to move in Palestine, and the Palestinians greeted them with warm hearts, accepting them for who they are, accepting them as refugees, and accepting them as people from our land. Because in our lands, Lebanon, Palestine, Jordan, Iraq maybe, and other countries around the Middle East, we have had Jewish people live together with Muslims, with Christians, and with people from all different religions, because this is the land that God created, and these are the religions created by God. So there was no segregation and there was no discrimination between them. In 1948, the State of Israel was announced. And upon that, it was announced after several Palestinians and Palestinian civilians were kicked out of their lands by force and by discrimination, and with the help of the international community, several countries which stood by Israel, and especially the allies back then, which were settling as well in the area, and we had control over the countries in the area. More and more, the Palestinian settlements took over the Israeli settlements took over the Palestinian lands until Israel, or the state of Israel, began to grow one after the other. However, was Palestine enough for the Israeli? I can assure you not. For we in Lebanon have had problems with Israel. Israel invaded Lebanon on several occasions. One of the most notorious occasions was 1982, where the Israeli soldiers and the Israeli war machine reached out Beirut and even beyond that. Fortunately for Lebanon and for the area, we were able to get back a lot of Lebanese lands from 1982 till 2000. However, Palestinian lands are still occupied. Palestinians were taken away after their homes. They have moved to several countries. They still live abroad. Some of them are still not living fairly, even in the countries they have been in since 1948. So, which is 3 generations so far. We have had Palestinians living in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Turkey, in several countries from all over the world. Some have gotten to become citizens of the countries they have moved in. Others are still segregated even within their countries. Icyf President Mr. Taha himself was able to visit the Palestinian refugee camps here in Lebanon to see some of the states that they are living in, and the state that they are living in, the shortage of jobs, the shortage of food, the shortage of lots of things being provided by the UNRWA or by the UN. However, was that enough for Israel? Again, that was not. As it was clearly stated in the Israeli national anthem, that the Israeli land is from the river to river, from the Nile to the Furat, between the 2 lakes. So the Zionist creed extends to the whole area. Israeli massacres happening in Palestine have been taking place ever since 1948. The UN condemns this. Human rights violations is currently very clear. In the past 11 days, the war on Gaza and the strikes on Gaza has had over 65 children dead because of the bombings. And what has the international community done? Except for little condemnations here and there by some speeches, which is never enough. The Palestinian issue is not something that comes up once a while that we can speak of. It's a continuous issue that has been taking place since 1948. It is something that the world can never have enough of, because it is the Palestinian right for their free land. You cannot just come in and settle in one's land, take over, occupy their land, and expect them to live peacefully with it and to just abide by your rules. And even within the occupied land, we can still see segregation, discrimination happening with the Palestinians, with Palestinian Muslims, because the Zionist regime does not accept others as it tries to show people, tries to show the international community. And we saw that obviously by what happened in Sheikh al-Jarrah and what happened in Masjid al-Aqsa, Al-Quds. For us, for all of the world, for all the fear of the world, no one is allowed to enter Al-Quds. Al-Quds, the Masjid al-Aqsa, is a symbol to all Muslims. It is a symbol to all Arabs. It's a symbol to all the free world, because the right of religion and the right of belief is stated by the Human Rights Act. And upon that, we should all raise our voices. We should all be standing with our Palestinian brothers and sisters in any way we can possible. Maybe it is by funding, maybe it is even by mere social media posts, social media campaigns, which definitely have, as we have seen past few weeks, it has had a good turnabout. It has done a lot of pressure in a lot of areas, and the Israeli government is embarrassed by its doing. Hopefully, we can all strive to do more. As youth of this world, we definitely stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Palestine, with our sisters and brothers in Icyf Jarrah. To conclude, we as a youth initiative by ICYF, we salute that. We call out everyone to sign the letter by ICYF. And furthermore, we would like to say that resistance is the language, is the only language the occupier and its terrorist acts. It's the only way to stand against them, by resistance and resist only. Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad Hazim, for your remarks. And of course, I totally agree with you that it's very important to recognize and to acknowledge that what is being wrong and what is being right. So thank you very much for your words and taking young people on board. Without further ado, I would like to request Mr. Ahmed Kader Samoro, member of ICYF, representing Port River. Mr. Ahmed, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Dear Prophet, I am president of ICYF, Distinguished Ministries. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. In our capacity as the largest youth organization in Ivory Coast and leading Muslim association in Côte d'Ivoire, let us recall all the decisions rendered by international organizations working in the field of peace and international security, in particular the United Nations, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. We affirm our commitment to the ideals of peace, solidarity, and brotherhood towards all Muslims wherever they are in the world, in accordance with the teaching of our religions, referring to the deterioration of situation of Palestine. We, members of Association of Muslim Pupils and Students of Côte d'Ivoire, let us give our support and express our solidarity to our brothers and sisters from Palestine. Condemn with utmost energy all acts of violence perpetrated against Palestinian people, non-combatant population, in particular killings, destruction of property, arbitrary arrest. Denounce all violations of international humanitarian law and human rights committed by Israel. Call on all Muslim and non-Muslim states to seize the Palestinian causes to put an end to any aggression against these people. Encourage young Muslims around the world to take action to demonstrate our brotherhood and solidarity with Palestine, to governments and embassies of member countries of the United Nations Security Council. Thank the instigators of this international webinar, which provide proof of unity of all the people, of the Muslim, of the youth, of the world, of the question of Palestine. We reiterate our readiness to take part in all initiatives aimed at promoting freedom and rights for our bosom of Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear brother, for your remarks, and I really appreciate you for being brief and sharing the crux of this event today. So thank you very much. Now I would request Ms. Fatima Muhammad, representing Djibouti, for her remarks. Ms. Fatima, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Excellencies and distinguished member of ICYF, good afternoon everyone. I'm pleased and honored to be a part of this discussion, as I believe that is our religious duty and our humanitarian integrity to stand up for our voiceless brother and sister in Palestine. For over a month now, we have been witnessing one of the most upsurge in violence. We are particularly dismayed at the large number of civilian deaths and injuries, including children. All leaders continue to have responsibility to act against extremists, against violence, and incitement, and to do everything in their power to calm the situation. Invading and demolishing Palestinian homes, bombing civilians, including kids, damaging sacred places, and closing border to corner and terrorize Palestinians is not acceptable. We should generate more support for the Palestinian cause, raise awareness and around you, keep posting regardless of social media censorship, and take economic action such as donating to Palestinian and boycotting Israeli products and businesses as much as we can. And remember, you don't have to be Muslim to support this cause. You just have to be human. It's not about religion, but humanity. And even if the whole world turns its back, we will continue to stand beside our brother and sister in Palestine and uphold the historical and legal status of Al-Aqsa Mosque, our first Qibla. Djibouti will not support this modern-day Holocaust that is nothing but a colonization, an ethnic cleansing, and apartheid. This tragedy and violence must end now. Thank you for listening, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
So thank you very much, Ms. Fatima, for your remarks. And it's very important that we call upon all the leaders and also push the young people to be together for this cause. Thank you very much. Now I would request Mr. Icyf Dador from Morocco. Mr. Icyf, floor is yours.
It's 16
Thank
hours.
you so much. I would like to express deep thankfulness to Icyf for holding this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, for decades, the Kingdom of Morocco has been a close friend with Palestine and always stands for its crucial cause. Morocco was and still among the first nations that support Palestinian crisis and will ever be. Morocco's position is very clear and fair. It confidently expresses its refusal of Israel's occupation of the land along with any violation that is taken against Palestinians. In response to the last Israel attacks in Gaza Strip, a swift emergency humanitarian aid sent by Morocco at the order of the King Mohammed VI, the chairman of Al-Quds Committee to the Palestinian population in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, started arriving aboard aircraft of Royal Armed Forces. 2 aircraft loaded with basic foodstuffs, emergency medicine, and blankets landed at Amman's airport. This humanitarian aid, decided by the King VI, is part of Morocco's permanent solidarity with Palestinian people. Apart from that, many humanitarian initiatives have been sent by Morocco through decades, demonstrating faithful commitment to Palestinian cause. We mention in this context the field military hospital in Gaza Strip in 2018. The hospital, since it began providing medical services on June the 12th, provided medical consultation to almost 40,000 people and distributed 30 tons of various types of medicines. Morocco, in his reaction to recent Ramadan violation in Jerusalem, had already denounced in the strongest terms the violence targeting the occupied Palestinian territories, deeming that such violence will only deepen rifts, sow hatred, and undermine peace efforts in the region. The king reaffirmed that he will spare no effort to preserve the ancient historical identity of Jerusalem, a land of coexistence between all religions. In reaction to the last update, it's undeniable that all Arab and Muslim nations felt at ease after the declaration of the ceasefire agreement reached between Israel and Palestinian armed group in Gaza Strip. Thousands of people in Gaza and Palestinian territories poured onto the streets to celebrate the ceasefire, waving flags and flashing V signs for victory. Young people were among the most affected groups during the last Israeli operation on the besieged coastal enclave. Last but not least, the King Mohammed VI is in his capacity as chairman of Al-Quds Committee will continue to defend the particular status of Al-Quds, protect its Islamic character, preserve the sanctity of Al-Aqsa Mosque, and defend the identity of this holy city as a land of coexistence between the three monotheistic religions. Palestinian prime cause is considered the utmost priority of Morocco under the wise leadership of His Majesty the King Mohammed VI, who once stated, Palestinian cause is one of the priorities for Morocco. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yusuf, for your remarks. And of course, this cause needs the maximum support possible, and for the people who are affected by this whole aggression by the Israeli forces. I would again request everybody who is online to please make sure that you are tweeting or using hashtag We Stand With Palestine, so that we can also reach you. We can share your thoughts as well. At the same time, last but not the least for this session, I would request Mr. Qasim Farasat, elected executive of Commonwealth Youth Council representing Pakistan. Mr. Qasim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fasahat. Dear Excellencies, delegates, Assalamu alaikum. Given the limitation of time, I would keep my statement very limited to highlight the impacts on the youth population of Palestine due to Israel's recent attempt for an unlawful and forced eviction in Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. It is clearly a violation under the international humanitarian law. While East Jerusalem remains part of the occupied Palestinian territory, Israel cannot impose laws in occupied territory to evict Palestinians. And this largely includes the Palestinian youth. That is 1/3 of the Palestinian society, representing 30% of the 5 million population in Palestine that came under the Israeli attack, facing the brutality, injustice, and inhumanity. Palestinian youth are living under harsh conditions. The data shows that 1 person out of 25 young people is with disability, and 20% of youth were subjected to at least one form of violence, out of which 19% are males and very unfortunately 33% are females. While we understand that Israeli-Palestinian conflict cannot be resolved by war and violence, and a political resolution is needed, while abiding by the international laws, youth participation and engagement is absolutely critical in building peace and achieving security. And it is very unfortunate that while the youth empowerment is crucial, the development statistics highlight that young people are absent from the processes of decision-making, community development, and participation in building peace and achieving security. However, on the other hand, despite the difficult circumstances under which they're living, young people have launched several initiatives seeking to achieve peace among the conflicting sides and reinforce security and peace in society. Nevertheless, looking at the overall outcome of the different youth-led initiatives and activities, their influence seems to be limited given the important role youth are required to play. And I firmly and strongly believe that this really is an opportunity for us all to highlight the importance of young people at the national, regional, and international level. We have to understand that we need to bring all the stakeholders into the peace achieving process. And youth is a big stakeholder of that process. And we have to give the opportunity to the youth to come forward and be part of the negotiation and discussion. Keeping this into consideration, there are several initiatives that have been launched by different international youth organizations, one of which is of my own organization that I am part of. As the representative to the Commonwealth Youth Council, I'm elected to serve the Asian region. And the initiative that I recently launched is of bringing together the youth of the Asian region as a collaboration mechanism so that we can promote the peace in the region. We can talk about the different challenges that are faced by the youth in the region and come up with solutions to overcome those common challenges. And I do see a good initiative through that initiative of youth collaboration mechanism that the Commonwealth Youth Council have launched. And I would request all the stakeholders, all the partners that are attending today's meeting to please connect with us, connect with the youth to promote peace and security. At the end, I would like to thank the moderator for moderating this today's session. Fasahat, you've done a very good job. And I thank Icyf for hosting this session. And I pass my regards and salam to Brother Taha Ehyan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear brother Qasim, for your remarks. And it is very important for this cause to have maximum support from all national, international, and regional platforms and initiatives. So thank you very much for being here today and sharing your thoughts. Sorry, I missed Mr. Salman Aksongar, Academic Coordinator at Istanbul Center for International Law. Please accept my apologies. I missed your name. Please, floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for this invitation. I would like to bring your attention some of the issues that we have addressed in our expert meeting organized by Islamic Youth Cooperation, ICY, on the 18th of May. And in that meeting, the lawyers, academics, and human rights experts from Palestine, Jordan, and Turkey, we have discussed some of the ongoing violations of the human rights and humanitarian law on the territory of the state of Palestine. Of course, it is not possible to explain you all the potential avenues to seek justice and accountability for the crimes committed in Palestine, but I tried to highlight three important avenues which I believe more effective and progressed trajectories compared to the others. First is the invoking universal jurisdiction. Universal jurisdiction allows national courts to try cases of war crimes, even those crimes are not committed in the national territory, and even if they are committed by the government leaders of the other states. So in the case of the Palestinian civilians, I believe the representatives and the members of the youth organizations in the world are able to seek justice in their national domestic courts if they apply and if they submit their cases in their domestic courts and targeting the Israeli military commanders and also defense forces. I believe this is one of the potential and key avenue for ensuring the serious violations of the war crimes committed against Palestinian citizens. That has happened in the case of the Mavi Marmara, and it had worked a lot and effectively enforced some of the countries in the West. And I believe this has limited the travel possibility of the Israeli officials and commanders outside their territories and outside Israel. So I believe this is an effective avenue to keep them within the confines of their own territory. The second issue that I would like to bring your attention is engaging with the International Criminal Court more effectively. As you may probably well know, on the 3rd of March of this year, the prosecutor announced the opening of her investigation into the situation of the Palestine. So she stated that she is monitoring the ongoing situation, which started on the 30th of April of this year, to include into the ongoing investigation. So I call all the parties who are able to record or preserve all the information, documentation, and evidence, including the interview with witness testimony and forensic material, any other material that will be relevant for this ongoing investigation, to engage with the court. The court is open to all. By sending just an email, you can engage with the court and you support the ongoing investigation against the crimes that are committed against the Palestinian civilians. And furthermore, to engage with the court in another way, the mission of the current prosecutor, Fatah Bensouda, is ending in 2 weeks. In the mid of June, 15th of June, the new upcoming prosecutor, Karim Khan, is going to start his mission. And there were many rumors have been so far circulated in the social media that trying to undermine the credibility of upcoming prosecutor Karim Khan, and to mention that he is not to take any action, planning to not take any action regarding Palestinian file. So I urge all the friends of Palestinians, activists, and also youth organizations, part of this network, to engage with the upcoming prosecutor Karim Khan and to send him an open letter to invite him to engage with this case much more effective way. This case has been lodged to the ICC in 2015, and the present prosecutor Fatah Bensouda was not couraged enough to open this investigation before 2021. So this will be helpful for also further accountability and also justice causes. And the third, the Human Rights Council established International Commission of Inquiry to investigate violations in the occupied Palestinian territory, including in Jerusalem and also Israel. And this resolution was introduced by Pakistan on behalf of the Organization of the Islamic Conference. So the Islamic organization and also the Youth Forum should take the ownership of this resolution and also try to implement this. So in that regard, I invite all the youth organizations, lawyers, human rights activists to collect, consolidate, and analyze any relevant material and evidence that be important for the prosecution of these violations and abuses of these war crimes perpetrated, and encourage civil society to inform the members of this Commission of Inquiry. Now, at the moment, the President of the Human Rights Commission of the United Nations is forming the expert panel of this Commission of Inquiry, and I believe this Commission of Inquiry will be the first step towards reaching the justice and accountability for the war crimes committed against the Palestinian people. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salman, for very important issues you highlighted and raised. And I totally agree with you that at the same time we are speaking, we also need to go with the book. And International Criminal Court process, and of course the UN Human Rights Council's recent resolution is very, very important. And I assure you that from Pakistan and of course from many other countries who have been part of this whole process, we need to take it forward. And I'm sure that Icyf, since Icyf now received the UN ECOSOC status, so I am sure that Icyf leadership will make sure that we are supporting and contributing into this process at Geneva as well as in the New York of the United Nations. So thank you very much, Mr. Salman, for highlighting these very important issues. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure we can take these things forward. I know we are behind the time, and the next session is very, very important, which is panel of experts. And we have a co-moderator, Ms. Naveen Nasrullah from Lebanon. She will be taking over afterwards. But before that, I would like to request for the opening statement by Mr. Hussein Kashiri, board member of
Ummah Youth stands with Palestinian people.
My name is Ahmed. Ethiopia Might Youth stands for Palestine.
Burkina Faso Youth stand with Palestinian people.
Youth from Bosnia and Herzegovina stands with Palestinian people.
Azerbaijan youth stand with Palestinian people.
Algerian youth stands with Palestinian people.
Albanian people stand with Palestinian people.
Afghan youth stands with Palestinian people.
Turkish youth stands with Palestinian people.
Tunisian youth stands with Palestinian people.
Thailand stands with Palestine.
Sudanese youth stands with Palestine.
As a Somali youth, we stand with Palestinian people.
Sierra Leone youth stand with the Palestinian people.
Senegal, we stand with Palestinian people.
Sandra stands with Palestinian people.
Pakistani youth stand with the Palestinian people. Niger stands with Palestine.
Moroccan youth stand with Palestinian people.
Mali, we stand with Palestinian people.
Kosovo stands with Palestine.
Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus youth stands with Palestinian people.
Kyrgyz youth stands with Palestine.
Kazakh youth stand with Palestine.
Montenegrin youth stands with Palestine people.
Iranian youth stands with Palestine. Indonesian youth stands with Palestinian people.
Gambian youth stand with the people of Palestine.
The Bangsamoro youth stands for Palestinian people.
Malaysian youth stands with